I want to, kind of do a little bit of cleanup as far as why we decided to move this to. I'm doing it on Zoom and recording it, and then we'll probably edit a little bit because you and I can talk for a long time. But
Hmm.
one of the things, so we recently did a trip to El Paso together in Doña Ana County, New Mexico. Number one, obviously, we're doing this not on Substack. We're having issues with Substack.
Clearly, the one article that I wrote about Camp East, Montana, it has been shared and shared and shared. I mean, like, there's been like 17,000 views of this thing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Still, though, like the reason that I ended up posting it a third time, the only reason I did was because a number of people had said, I can't restack this to me.
Okay, so those are the problems I'm having as well. And we do not feel confident, and we've seen problems in Substack Lives that we've been doing, just with the technology, and then also with, I feel that what we're about to go into, and I think we should share these videos. I'm going to put them on Borderland Talk, and then I'm going to send them to you, and I think you should put them on scaffolding, because
Okay.
scaffolding is originally, obviously, we started it in as far as rape culture and the prejudice around women and sexual assault and things like that, and talking about how these are systems. But the immigration scaffolding and stuff is the same scaffolding that's going
Yeah.
on. So I think that we should share that. Now, and as far as one of the reasons why we went to El Paso was about the women who, the 55% of the bodies being found out there were women. We went to go work with an organization that we found out was actually abusing and using this fact to get donations, and we had to back out of that halfway through the search. I have written extensively 2 articles about that, and that's
Mhm.
really all we want to give to that.
Okay.
We appreciate, obviously, the support, and I appreciated the donors who enabled me to get out there. But we have addressed that. So if you want to see that, then go to Borderland Talk on my Substack, and you can read about that. So
Okay.
I also feel that when we do these live Substacks, which is what Substack tries to push creators to do, for many of us creators, at least for me, I don't like the pressure. I don't like that it's live.
Okay.
Um, Not that I feel like I need to be recorded and edited, because I don't really edit a whole lot out of this stuff other than dog barks or doorbell rings and things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But it just, I it tends to create a lot of rambling, and then also it creates distraction for me to see the thread going on down
Hmm.
below. And I just feel like the subjects that we're getting into, the time that we're getting into, we need to try and be more concise and considerate of what we're talking about. So that's why we've
Okay.
decided to pull. But at the same time, pulling this out of Substack enables us to then go to other platforms and put it on other platforms as well. So like on my Ghost, I can't do videos, but I do it on YouTube. And so what I've decided to do with Ghost, and as far as like this video and stuff, is I'm going to start doing a transcript of what was talked about. And so then I can put it out, and my Ghost followers can then follow it that way. So, but there was a lot of other stuff going on in El Paso on our El Paso and New Mexico trip. And Lisa has written, what, 2 or 3 articles on what that was like for you as a Latina coming from middle America and
Yeah.
coming down for the first time to see the border militarization, see the camps, and see what that looks like. And so on this podcast, we want to talk about, Lisa was able to visit the East Montana camp in El Paso. It's named
Mhm.
East Montana because it's on a road called Montana. It's not in Montana, it's on East
Mhm.
Montana Road. And that's why it's called that. I did not get to go that night because I was still extremely sick from heat sickness, but I set her up with of my friends in the community there in El Paso, and she got to go to that. And so today we're going to talk about that camp. We're going to talk about whether that is a concentration camp and where all of this is leading and what Lisa witnessed. She's going to give you her feelings about that. Um, and we'll talk a little bit about what an expert, Andrea Pitzer, who will tell you all about her and why I think you should follow her as an
Mhm.
expert in camps and concentration camps and enforced labor camps. So, with that being said, Lisa, you want to talk about your time and what you witnessed at East Montana?
It is one thing to see photos and to see videos, and entirely another, I would say, to actually witness a bus full of human beings being driven into a concentration camp right in front of you. So when I walked up to this place, I literally started, I mean, I felt nauseous. I remember that is because I just, it was an experience that I can't really put my finger on. I wanted, because what I wanted to do was go get everyone out, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And that feeling of helplessness, and my God, this is I am standing right in front of this enormous tent facility that I had not even known about, because we often hear about Dilly and Delaney, that are also horrible, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but those are kind of, there's only a few that we hear about directly. Um, and Camp East Montana was not one of them. So the more, for me,
Yeah.
that I've really heard about. And after speaking with, there was a lot of Latino groups that were part of this vigil, and talking with them, I saw three crosses that were along the fence line, and they were in honor of three men who had died at that camp: Geraldo Luna Campos, Victor Manuel Diaz, and Francisco Gaspar Cristobal. And Geraldo Lunas Campos actually is the gentleman who, it was found by the coroner that he died of asphyxia due to neck compression. So, but then nothing ever came of that. There was no investigation that was conducted. Um, and so I can't stop thinking about it. Once you see it, and I didn't get to go in, there was probably maybe 30, maybe less people. And I think that was also really surprising to me, because when I found out how huge this facility was.
Right.
So this facility, the government, and also it's their tents in the middle of the desert,
Soft-sided tents. Yeah.
soft-sided tents. And my understanding too is it's located where, this is on Fort Bliss
Mm-hmm.
property.
Mm-hmm.
So it was explained to me that it's kind of like a compound. Also, while I was there, I saw a potable water truck heading out from, the facility. And it was explained to me that, yeah, they're using, they have to have potable water trucked in every day. I'm just, I was blown away. Just tears in my, I just couldn't, it's next level to see the thing that everyone's talking about. And I couldn't get, I mean, they were very far, the tents, but they were blinding because they were
Mm-hmm.
just this stark white, and it was lit up like nothing I have ever seen. And the lights just blaring off of, reflecting, because it was dusk, reflecting off of the tents. Um, it looked very ominous.
They
Um,
keep those lights on all night long, and
and
it's a
that is what
form
I've
of
heard.
torture. Yeah, it's a
Hmm.
form of torture.
And I
Yeah.
recalled that from Alligator Alcatraz,
Mm-hmm.
listening to how they never shut the lights off. how people, never. I did read some reports, so then I did a lot of research on it because I just couldn't stop reading about it. This camp was built last summer. The government paid 1.2 or 3 billion dollars, y'all. 1.2 or 3 billion dollars. This is allegedly, from what I read, the largest concentration camp that exists in the United States, that was built to accommodate up to 5,000 bodies. That is a lot of people, and they're in soft-sided tents. There was a person who actually did get out of that place that was interviewed, who said that, he lost 25 pounds while in that facility. He was unable to breathe. There was so much dust all over the blankets. There was, it's the desert. You're in a tent.
So at the same time, was there a story about overdoses in the facility that were going on?
So that was the other thing that I ended up researching after finding out, because we had attended a meeting. We had attended where Jen was speaking, and there were a lot of people. There was a lot of people within the Latino community there, and other organizations there. There was a lot of different organizations there, and every Sunday they do a protest at the same corner that we were at the vigil, and that person had shared that the week prior that we were there, which was Memorial Day weekend, that they were out there and they saw ambulances, and an ambulance rushing in there. And they thought, oh gee, I wonder what's going on. And of course you can't see it, it's far away, but you're standing there and you can see that it's going in, and the lights were flashing. And then it was like, I don't know how long they said, 15 minutes to half an hour, however long they were there. And then all of a sudden they saw the ambulance without its lights on, leaving the facility, very with government, like SUV with vehicles escorting this ambulance out of the facility. So, and the lights weren't on or anything. So whatever had gone on, it didn't seem to take precedence that they left the facility in any sort of hurry, right? There was a reporter that had found out about that and had written a piece on this in the local Texas papers that said, and he was able to acquire the information on the emergency calls because that's public, and found out that there were not just one, but two calls in the course of 2 days at Camp East, Montana, that were for an overdose. And he was not able, in the last article that I was able to locate, they did not know whether or not that it was, who it was. Was it a detainee? Was it staff? They had no idea, but that it was an overdose call.
Yes, there has been an increase in deaths since Trump took office in ICE. And it matches his first administration, where ICE neglected at least 6 children who died in custody during those 4 years of Donald Trump's first presidency. And yet everybody seems to forget about that, or just not even care. Every single one of those children was an indigenous child as well. And this is not uncommon, and it has been going on for a long time. And ICE basically does whatever they want.
Yep.
And the attitude is, well, you shouldn't have come here illegally, which I'm going to say like over 70% of the people
Thank you.
in custody are not criminals. They have no criminal charges against them. And honestly, the majority of people ICE is arresting now did not enter illegally. They entered legally, and for whatever reason, they may be out of status, or ICE is now questioning that legal status.
You know, I'm a data person. Because they tell a story,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's one of the things that I had written about yesterday was Jen had said to me quite a while ago, and I've heard you reference this in many different conversations with other people as well. Um, you're like, yeah, I've been screaming about this for God knows how long. I was going to try to do your very cool Southern accent, but I'm not going to do that because that's not.
It's just a mumble.
It's a, but you're like, yeah, yeah, we've been telling y'all this for I've been screaming about this for the last 5 years. Like, where's, now you're seeing it. You're like border justice. Now that's in the interior. And I believed you and I saw it. I saw it when when I saw the video or the documentary that you were on, the death at the, what was it?
Critical incident.
Critical incident death at the border, that won an Emmy. And I saw it there, right? The border justice, as you referred to it. And I saw it literally like within a week, because I saw it the first day it came out. And then like within 7 days is when Renee Nicole Good was shot. And just what looked very much appeared like nobody had their shit together. Everybody was, depending on who you talk to, there was a different something coming out, them attacking her from the rip, saying that she was a criminal, that she was trying to run over the officer. I mean, I have looked at every angle. Of course, I was not there, but all the rest of us have looked at every angle. And I'm sorry, not sorry, but that person was Jonathan. I cannot recall his last name. He was on the, yes, Jonathan was on the side of that vehicle, right?
Mm-hmm.
He just was. And then having talked, and then I had just, and I'm like, oh, because this is what they do. This is how they orchestrate we didn't make a mistake. We didn't do anything wrong. And, so I knew it then, but then also going into Texas, I would say that it every last dot connected for me.
Mm-hmm.
And being a Latina, in a way also that it haunts me because growing up in Ohio, I grew up in a small little town. I would literally, and I cannot make this up, I was in the first town I grew up in, my father and I were the only ethnic people with brown skin at all. The second town, there was another family that had three girls who also had a Hispanic last name. They were Mexican, and I'm Puerto Rican. So I've heard a lot of racial slurs. There was a lot of people that were very prejudiced. I've heard a lot of hurtful things over the years, but also, I made friends. I had a lot of, I'm not going to make it sound as though I was, my entire experience was horrible. But there is I've experienced a lot of racism. My family, most especially, who are very brown, because I am half Puerto Rican. My father is was very, very dark. And so the stories that I would hear about, like the Puerto Ricans had to get out of the sundown towns also, when in Ohio. As a matter of fact, the place where my aunt and uncle live, you had met my aunt Kim when we were there. They live in a town that was a sundown town that actually still has it on their books, technically.
Wow.
Yeah, they still have it on their books. And so, as a matter of fact, my uncle tells the story of when they first bought their house there and my grandfather showed up. He was like, you should not buy a house here. This is
Huh.
not this is not a good place for you to live. Um, but the difference is that people could hate us, they could look at us, they could look down upon us, they could say whatever they wanted to say, and they couldn't ruin our lives.
You could still
They
succeed. There were
We
still
could still succeed.
avenues.
There were
Yeah.
avenues. We just, you know, bit our lip, put our
Hmm.
nose down, worked really fucking hard
Yeah.
to make it so that there ain't nothing you're going to be able to say about our work ethic. And especially also, when you're women, it's like when you're a woman, it's like a double whammy,
Hmm.
because, well, for obvious reasons. So that's the thing that sticks with me, that I can't, um, and it's something that I think, having immersed myself in Black culture, having worked at a facility or at an agency where I ran for youth who were living significantly below poverty level. 99% of them were African American. So I immersed myself in Black culture, and I was the minority where I went to work every day.
Okay.
And I have a lot of Black friends, and I think what I am like I am now, and I can't say I understand, but I think this is something they have dealt with their entire lives, based on the friends that I know, friends that have talked to me about driving while Black, um, which basically means getting pulled over for nothing, but they see a Black person, especially if you're in a nicer car. I have so many different friends that have told me stories. They're in a nicer car and getting pulled over because they're Black, and for nothing. Um, and
Can
in
I
those,
say something real quick
yeah,
to that the Black community connection with what we see going on now? When I started doing this, I want to say back before 2019, I was at first invited to El Paso by Dr. Reverend Barber,
right,
who's
is amazing, amazing.
amazing minister. I went to Juarez with him, and then I went and spoke at one of his congregation meetings there in El Paso that he had. And one of the comments he had to me was that after looking at the system and talking to me and seeing what was coming, and this was the first Trump administration, he said, this is the extenuation of the slavery movement and Jim Crow. And this is the extension of where we need to go with
100%.
civil rights, where, we had all that. And then we see moments where we see like the highest percentage of college graduates are Black women. So they're making progress and this and that.
They
And
did all
what
the things, all the
they
things they
did
were
all the
supposed to,
things they were
all the
supposed to do.
things.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so what he's saying is what they've done, the white supremacists have done, is in the name of immigration, national security, are you legal, are you illegal kind of thing, are you documented, undocumented kind of thing. They now use that to justify, but it's the same system. It's the same system of cheap slave labor.
Yep.
And it just has slightly obviously different looks than slavery. But that's why you're seeing that connection between the Black community and now and coming down. And that's what I had hoped, is you coming down to see what this looks like on the southern border, because the news media, national news media, does not demonstrate this at all to
No.
Americans about what
Yeah.
this looks like. And
No.
I
We hardly
recall.
ever hear about it. I'm telling you. I mean, even before now, it's like you hear how many Americans get the opportunity to spend time in the borderlands in a Borderlands community. And if you've never seen it and you don't know about it, you're also not like, you're not going to hear about it. So you're just not going to know about it. You might see it on a cable TV show somewhere, like, I don't know, like, or in some sort of campaign. Like that's it,
What did
you
you
know?
learn from the Latino community that I was able to hook you up with? What was your, because I had asked you, I said, do you think that this helps you hearing and being able to talk to
Yeah,
other
so
Latinos?
much.
Does it kind of like broaden your understanding of what's happening? Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. Well, I think comments that stuck with me was, and you heard it, it was during when you talk, they had said, the allyship of white people. And in El Paso, at least, it was the general feeling that, um, when they see like all of the things that had happened in Minnesota, how
Mm-hmm.
great it was that all of the community stepped up, everyone in the community, and the allyship from white people was just um, incredible. That they stepped up to help the Latino community, because yes, there are other immigrants that are being targeted. However, there's all kinds of things out there. We all know that they are targeting Latinos. That
Mm-hmm.
is, even and you saw me, like, I go, which is ridiculous. It's ridiculous to think that a person has their papers with them everywhere they go. I'm an American citizen, born and raised I was born here on the 4th of July, no less, right? Um, and I am carrying my passport and my birth certificate and my marriage certificate to show that I'm married to a white guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because hoping that if I get pulled over for any reason and it's the reality that
Mm-hmm.
maybe that might matter.
Mm-hmm.
It might not, but because I don't trust Border Patrol, or I should say ICE, there aren't really Border Patrol so much, but I don't trust ICE officers because of everything that we have witnessed. And so I know that the border justice that's come to the interior can do whatever the hell they want, and it will be covered up
Mm-hmm.
because they don't make mistakes.
So what did the local groups tell you who live there in El Paso? What did they say they're seeing from the white community in as far as allyship in El Paso?
That what they said was that what they said was they appreciated, that made such a huge difference in Minnesota. And unfortunately, they don't necessarily have that in El Paso, that they don't have that. What the
Mm-hmm.
comment was, they don't have that, not necessarily don't. I will say that there was one person that we had met while we were there, who happens to be white, who is also on Substack, who had reached out after I had written an article about allyship, because then I spent some time interviewing and talking to different people about what that would look like, and writing about allyship, and from the perspective of, and I also was, I want to say, just because I'm Latino, I didn't walk in there thinking, first of all, I'm not Chicano. I haven't lived in even if I was, if I still lived the same life that I'm living right now in Ohio, and pretending that I understand what it is like to be living in the borderlands in El
Yeah.
Paso, that's ridiculous, right? So
Right.
I came in with a very open mind and an open heart to be asking all kinds of questions so that I could understand, what is it that you need?
Mm-hmm.
What is it that you want other people to know?
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the comments that I had heard someone make. And I spent time a significant amount of time talking to different people about what they, does responsible allyship look like, from white people. And what I was told was, basically, what they've seen a lot is groups come in, in the past. So they used, and I asked, what does good allyship look like? Well, they talked about Tornillo, which was the camp that housed children, unaccompanied children, and was a shit show. And a lot of people heard about that place. And there was a gentleman, I cannot recall his name, who actually did a documentary and had brought a lot of attention to it and had connected with the Latino groups out there. And they were able to, he spent a lot of time out there, and they were able, in fact, it did in fact get shut down. That was in, I think, 2019. But one of the interesting things about it is, and then, there was all this filming going on while that was happening. And then the way the documentary came out, it was literally, I guess, all about, told through the eyes and all about him, the white guy who went there. And without the allyship of, he helped. I mean, obviously, this is a collective effort and impact when all of us gather together. But nobody can do it alone. That person he couldn't have done it without all of those Latino groups also helping, and vice versa. He brought a lot to the table, and they're grateful to him, and they didn't have anything negative to say about him. It was just, when you think about it, why is it that the documentary had to be told through the eyes of the white person who was his personal experience, as opposed to, a collective group effort, including the Latinos who are doing this really important work every day on the front lines. And they also talked about the importance of making sure that you're walking in and asking, like, what is it that you need? How can I help? And they commented about what, people coming in, and then also white people coming in and thinking they're in charge.
So, I mean, both of those incidents that you're describing, what you just said about coming in and thinking they're in charge, trying to take over, they have better ideas and stuff, or the documentary focusing more on his interpretations. I have not seen the documentary, but it sounds like what you're describing to me is ways in which white people center themselves, and I have done that myself when I first started doing this work, and there is a certain part of my work in which I do center myself just because of my experience as a Border Patrol agent.
Sure.
I've had to learn how to not do that. You can always step into that because not to excuse it, but you have to unlearn a lot. And I think a lot of times when white people come into these situations, obviously sometimes with ill intent, but the majority of the time I would like to think that they're trying to do good, and they just don't listen. And that's the biggest thing, is just to be quiet and listen and say, what can I do? So it sounds like what the El Paso community was telling you, the Latino community was telling you, is that a lot of people come in with these good intentions, but then end up centering their whiteness in this, and then the story gets lost. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, you said it so much better than me. I took too much time, Jen.
No, you didn't take too much time.
I did.
But,
No, I did. But you're right. I think that's exactly what I'm saying. Honestly, I do. I think that they appreciate and want and need the help. They just want people to hear. I mean, imagine and that's true for, it doesn't, okay, so let's back it up. If I were to go anywhere, or someone was to come to my community in Ohio, you don't know everything that's going on. You don't know all of the work that's being done. You don't know all of the groups that are affiliated with it. And if it is something specifically regarding Latinos, it kind of makes sense that you also include them and make sure that you understand their perspective and what they've seen. Because walking in the, like I said, until I now carry papers
Yeah.
with me wherever I go in case. Now, people can look at me and say, "Oh, you're just, you're being hyperbolic.
Mm-hmm.
You're being hyperbolic. Um, you're being, you're dramatizing this." No, I am. If they can shoot a white woman and then
A white man.
and a white, and I was just going to say, and even worse, not worse, but worse for when you're talking about a patriarchal society, that that the man is white male, gun toting, Carhartt wearing, guys with a beard and a baseball cap.
I think he was a veteran, right? Or a
Who
veteran's
was
nurse, a
He
nurse
was a
of
veteran's
veterans.
nurse. Like
Yeah.
that guy, if we're looking at the hierarchy of a food chain, right? Like he's on the top,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So if they can shoot that guy in the back,
Mm-hmm.
and a white house housewife, she
Mm-hmm.
wasn't working out of the home, a mom in the streets. What makes anyone think that they can't do that? Literally to anyone,
Yep.
anyone, especially a woman who is Latina. So, and you might look at me and think, "Oh gosh, well, you look more Italian." Some people think that. Whatever. Some people don't know whatever nationality I am. I know one thing though, my last name's Gonzalez. And so if someone sees that, you and I both know, Jen, can they or can they not fuck with you once
Oh, they
they
can
find that
fuck
out?
with you and you might be able to eventually get out, but the pain and trauma that they're going to put you through in holding you. They held one man who was a US citizen, a white guy, I
Right.
just saw the other day, incognito for like 5 days. And he was
5
injured
days.
and they wouldn't allow him to talk to his attorney or his family. Nobody knew where they were. And in the end, they'll just go, "Oh, well, oops, mistake," and just send back. And there's nothing you can do about it. And by the time most people, not everybody, but most people have a job. They have bills to pay. They have dogs at home they have to take care of, or kids and this and that. All that gets disrupted. And so then maybe you end up losing your job because you didn't show up for 5 days. And so this
That's
just,
right.
and then when they take you to court, then you got to pay for all that other stuff. And they're going to drag you through it. So part of the abuse is putting you into the system, whether
That's
they're
right.
right or wrong. They're
Mm-hmm.
going to be fine. They're going to be protected. They've got the federal government behind them. They're not ever
That's
going to
right.
pay the cost of it,
That's
but
right.
you are going to pay the cost of it. And
That's
that's the
right.
whole point of shooting Renee Good and killing Alex Pretty, was to let all the white people know, hey, if you defend these people, this is
Yep.
going to happen to you.
Yep.
And there's not shit you're going to be able to do about it. I do want to say the difference between the cultures and the communities that we see in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and then in El Paso. So the difference there in Minneapolis, Minnesota, even though the majority of people are white in those communities, they have opened uh, their communities and welcomed immigrants, Somalis and other people, and they have communities where they work together to help people, to help immigrants succeed in their communities and this and that. It's a very big thing in Minneapolis. This is why ICE targeted them, because they want to break up that community. In El Paso, even though the majority of people in El Paso are Latino,
Mm-hmm.
the Border Patrol has taken over a lot of the immigration and border studies in, like, the University of Texas in El Paso is run by former Border Patrol chiefs. So they are dictating how to see immigration, how to see the border. And if you live in El Paso, every other person has some relative that is working for CBP, ICE, Border Patrol, or the military. It is just all, it's a huge base for that. And El Paso is the home to the Border Patrol. So people in that community, their dealings with immigration agents are generational. And the
Yep.
abuse that they have dealt with is generational, and that is passed down. That is something that we, as outside community members, whether we're Latinos or not, when we come into those communities, probably don't understand if we're not from that area. And
No,
so
how,
that's an
no,
important difference. Yeah.
there's no way and that is, and I recognize that just because my last name is Gonzalez does in no way put me in the same shoes as a
Mm-hmm.
person that's been growing up in, their family has been growing up on the border with
Mm-hmm.
generational trauma
Mm-hmm.
to what they have experienced.
Yeah, and
And
the Cuban diaspora is different
yep.
than the Puerto Rican, than the Mexican, and so and we treat different Latinos in different ways depending on what we want from them. So,
Well, and the other
yeah.
part is that the part that is different for me, I guess I would say, is that, and that's why I said I'm finally getting it. I don't want to say finally getting it. Have any sort of understanding, true understanding of the notion of being potentially hunted by someone for your last name.
Yeah, so I think like maybe this trip really like not that you didn't understand this, but to really like solidify what that means, like
Yeah.
physically seeing that camp and knowing that the people in there from whatever country they're from, the majority are Latinos. The majority have last names like Gonzalez,
The
Hernandez,
majority of
Rojas.
them could look like, and that is the reason I
Uh-huh.
started Eleanor Squad was because in February of 2025, I saw Hispanic young men in shackles on, propaganda shit from our White House that was posted on Instagram and on the White House page of
Mm-hmm.
them in shackles being, and then all these propaganda videos. I just couldn't. I'm like, what the hell is going on? This, so it was like literally a something snapped it to
Mm-hmm.
me, and I understand that that has been going on and that
Mm-hmm.
they have had, but it has not been going on in the interior of the country,
Right.
and
Not
that
at least
is
as visibly as it is now. Yeah, they kept it
no.
more on the down low in
Yes,
the
it's been
interior
going
of the
out, but
country.
but yeah, nothing like there's no way no one has ever experienced just ICE descending upon anyone's interior community in, Minnesota or Ohio or anywhere else and just start walking through our streets,
It's an invasion.
and grabbing kids working in Target who
Mm-hmm.
are, American citizens, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
because they're allowed to, because it's perfectly acceptable to racially profile people. So I may or may not get racially profiled, but the reality is what I know from everything I've seen is that even the papers that I have on me don't matter. They could tell me they're fake
Yep.
and they could say, yeah, you got to go in anyway. And
Yeah.
that's how citizens get caught up in this bullshit.
Yeah.
Also, as
Yeah.
well as just immigrants who, not even immigrants, people who are here perfectly happy being a citizen of another country who may be here on vacation or just visiting, friends or family in the United States and get scooped up just as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a little bit more time so we can bring Andrea Pitzer's work into
Yeah,
this and
for
give it a little bit
sure.
of scholarly lean on it? So one of the things in Lisa's one of Lisa's posts, she was talking about the East Montana camp and how it kind of solidified her understanding that this is a concentration camp. And a lot of the responses she got were, this isn't a concentration camp, they're here illegally, don't you understand they committed a crime, and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot to unpack there. But I want to introduce people to, if you don't know who Andrea Pitzer, Pitzer, she's an academic and she is an expert in concentration camps. She recently, I don't know, I think a while ago, but one of her latest books was One Long Night, A Global History of Concentration Camps. And she goes through it and she talks about the differences of camps that existed throughout history. And her definition of a concentration camp is where civilians are detained without trial, often for political reasons or based on their identity. And so what we need to understand is about the people in East Montana and all these ICE facilities. When we look at the documentation over and over and over and over again, and the way that they say, oh, these people are all criminals, they are the worst of the worst, and on and on and on. 73% of those in ICE custody do not have criminal convictions. Only 5% have violent convictions. And it is important to remember that immigration violations, even if they're convicted for an immigration violation, are civil violations. They are not criminal violations. And so the majority of the people in these facilities, year after year after year, for decades, the statistics prove they are holding people in custody who have not been convicted. That's and right. Most recently, if you go to Andrea Pitzer's, you can go to Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast. She's on YouTube as well. She does her written post in a podcast as well. And it is called Next Comes What? And her latest one, it's one prior to today, she has a new one, but the one prior to that was called Profiting Off of Forced Labor in ICE Camps. And so what we see over and over, and Representative Veronica Escobar of El Paso just recently put out and stated that these ICE detention facilities are profiting off of forced labor. Now, if we go to, and this is all in Andrea's piece, I don't want to steal from her. This is all her analyzing this. She says, you know, the 13th Amendment ended slavery and forced labor as punishment, except when the individual has been convicted of a crime. And these ICE detention facilities where people have not been convicted of a crime, the majority of them have not, are claiming that therefore they can use these people and force them into labor. However, she points out the ACLU's Jennifer Turner had stated that because over 73% of those in ICE custody do not have criminal convictions and only 5% are have violent convictions, that's why it's important to remember that the vast majority of the people in custody are not convicted of any crime. So therefore, they're violating the 13th Amendment by forcing these people to do labor. And what Representative Veronica Escobar recently came out with was that she found out that we've paid these private prisons, especially in, she's looking at the East Montana camp, was paid millions of dollars for food services when they had nobody in custody. They are being paid millions of dollars. I didn't see that. Yeah, for I'll try and find it and send it to you. I think it was on Instagram. Janitorial services. And when you go in there, it is the immigrants in custody who are performing the janitorial services and being forced to for $1 or less a day. And a lot of times they're not even paid for it at all. They're ripped off.
And to your point about that you just made from is, do you know how many times I've also heard from people, these aren't work camps.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. And so this is the first time I have seen Miss Pitzer, Andrea Pitzer, start relating the concept of forced labor camps. And she's saying this is what's going on, and it's going to then expand into this is why the oligarchs and everything are involved in the surveillance and the capture of these immigrants, because they are going to be then used for more forced labor. And she points out, because a lot of people, and some people that responded to your article, are getting upset, saying that the only camps that can be called concentration camps were the ones from the Holocaust. And people claim you're being disrespectful if you don't say that and this and that. There have been lots of concentration camps that had nothing to do with the Holocaust, and it is not exclusively from the Jewish Holocaust. And she pointed out that even the Nazi death camps in the Holocaust started as forced labor camps. Yeah, and she goes through all that history. So I encourage people to listen to her podcast or to read.
That was excellent. You shared that with me, and I will tell you, I mean, for those who really do want to understand more, I thought what she had to share about the 13th Amendment was, I did not know that. And I think the more that we understand how they're using loopholes to get around the law, is next level. But it was excellent. She was excellent.
Andrea goes through that in this podcast where she's like, the gulags in Russia looked a little bit different than slavery in America, which looked a little bit different than the Nazis. And today it's different with technology and what the oligarchs are doing and all this other stuff and the technocrats and all the whatever you call them. So, and she makes that point that, it's not necessarily going to be gas chambers and this and that. Maybe it will. We don't know. But she talks about the different types of forced labor, that it generally takes two paths. One where they're forced to do the labor of making the institution continue, and then so the institution doesn't have to pay for that labor. They're just making more and more profit of it off of holding these people. And then also at the same time, she was mentioning that a lot of times in American concentration camps, it looks more like doing forced labor that has no purpose. So like maybe moving rocks or breaking rocks up just to keep you busy or whatever. And so it's being done as punishment. Something that also needs to be remembered is that immigration officials and DHS and everybody will tell you that immigration detention is not punishment. And so therefore they don't follow all the Geneva Conventions and all the rules and regulations that happen. But if it's not punishment, but you're forcing them to do labor and you're treating them, so it is punishment. It is punishment because like the whole concept, and this is another piece I want to do soon, is how deterrence has now come to ICE. So even if you get picked up and they say you could self-deport and you sign your self-deportation papers like, get me out of here, I don't want to stay in this facility, I want to be gone in a week, they will hold you. Now they're holding people for at least 2 months. Why? So they can make money off of you.
Oh, absolutely.
And also to punish you for doing this. This is punishment. And they are now, they're putting people who've done it the legal way in there, and they're doing this as punishment. And to deny that this is punishment is just criminal, and it defies logic, and they're just lying about it. They're just trying to say, oh, it's not punishment, but it is punishment. It is punishment. Do you want to have a final say on your experience of seeing the camp? And
my final say would be, I would encourage anyone and everyone, if you have the opportunity to at least attend a vigil or a protest at one of these facilities, anywhere that is close, even if you can't go all the way to El Paso, I would encourage you to do so. I can tell you, if I had one of those facilities right by me, I would be there all of the time. I would be at vigils, protesting. I have seen people talk about some of the vigils grow exponentially because there are people that will go every day. And I would encourage those who, and if you don't live close, go see it, because it is a different sort of feeling to stand there even if you can't go in the facility, just to know that you are there. And I mean, I saw buses of people being bussed in as I'm standing there. And the part that was really hard to wrap my head around is after that experience, as I'm walking back to the car where we had parked in a McDonald's, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, getting back in the car, grabbing a milkshake, going back
Mm-hmm.
to our hotel.
Yeah.
I I I couldn't, as I'm
Yeah.
watching people that are literally getting driven in to a facility that I'm not sure. I mean, most based on the statistics I'm looking at, right? The whole point is we want you out.
Mm-hmm.
And if you resist trying to leave, you're probably going to get punished by permissions. That's why we're seeing an escalation of suicide,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I would
I
encourage
think
anyone to go.